Yo, what's up, beef burgers? Grant here at Hot Beef Disc Golf, here to show you today what the adapted rules are for disc golf. Now, these rules are specific to people in wheelchairs or propelled mobility devices, and it comes directly from Appendix F. And I want to give you a visual representation of what those rules are and how they play out so that you, regardless of ability level, if you're using a wheelchair or any other mobility device, you can participate and compete in disc golf. Keep in mind for this, I'm just gonna be going over Appendix F. I'm gonna be building this basically off the base understanding that somebody watching this has already understood the rest of the rules of disc golf and is able to use just this knowledge to apply their knowledge of rules of disc golf to how to then adapt it. So this isn't everything, this is just what's in Appendix F for the adapted rule set. All right, so teeing off. The first section of Appendix F covers, when it comes to adapted rules, covers teeing off, which basically indicates what your supporting points are if you are playing from a wheelchair or other propelled mobility device. So all of the wheels are considered points of support for teeing off, but also the area in between the wheels. So if this was basically the device that I was using, everything that is a wheel in the area between the wheels is considered a point of support. So I could be right here in between the wheels and that could be considered a point of support, and I could tee off or have my 1 point of support be between the wheels. Now, there's no indication that you can't use a larger mobility device, say something that was 3-wheel device or had a big front wheel. The area between those wheels would also still be considered a point of support. So you could use that to your advantage to get a better or a more proper lie. Now, when this comes to beginning a hole, what's important to keep in mind is that when teeing off at the start of a hole, the entirety or every supporting point that is touching the ground, and it must be at least one, but every supporting point that is in contact with the ground when teeing off from the start of a hole has to be inside the tee area. So if this parking space was my tee box, the entirety of my chair or all points touching the ground have to be within the tee box. Now, some TDs will opt to have an increased tee box area to the side of, say, a concrete slab, which would allow you to probably easier access if you're using a wheelchair or mobility device. But the entirety of your supporting points that are in contact with the ground, and it must be at least one, has to be within that tee area. So let's go ahead and throw a drive, saying that that nice little light pole that I put pink paper on is my disc golf basket. All right, so now we got our drive and we got our pin. Now, typically, the disc golfer would have a theoretical about 8 by 12 area, which they would have to throw from behind the disc without having a point of contact ahead of the disc. Let's imagine this. Most commonly, people reference this as like a piece of paper, and that is where they would be required to throw from. However, this is not the case if you're using Appendix F for the adapted rule set. In fact, the adapted rule set says that the lengthwise of your lie is extended to 2 meters, which is just about 6.5 feet. So what we would do is kind of use our imagination to increase the length of this paper. Let me grab some chalk and we'll kind of mark that out. So with the adapted rule set, this now pink box represents the area in which my supporting point has to come into contact with from my throw. So my supporting point could be anywhere in this pink box as long as I don't have a point ahead of my lie. So once I have my stance, I can take my shot as long as it's a legal stance because one supporting point is within this box. And that could be just as much as just one edge of my wheel or the area between my wheels. So let's go ahead have a legal stance, and we can take our shot. All right, so now that we've covered lies, let's cover relief from obstacles, because let's be honest, your chair is probably not going to be able to get to every single point on the disc golf course. To be fair, our feet can't either. So sometimes we all need to be able to take relief from certain obstacles or terrain that is unnavigable or unsafe. So when it comes to taking relief, I would discuss with my card whether or not I could safely approach a lie. So if my beloved trusted trace landed here and my pin is down that way, I'm gonna have to probably take relief. Now, all I have to do is basically go in a direct line away from the point of play. So from my pin in a direct line back, and I would have to play from the first area that I can actually safely place a lie. So let's go ahead and place my lie. And once that's there, I could probably take my shot. Now, Appendix F starts classifying unnavigable terrain as anything that's deep mud or steep slopes, and leaves it a little bit open to interpretation. Now, you're gonna have to use your discretion and work with your card mates during sanctioned play to really keep an open mind and have an honest and open dialogue about what might or might not be navigable for you. Now, keep in mind that I have 6.5 feet to play from. So if my trace landed on the curb, I can still play from this lie. I don't need to take relief on that because I can take a stance that is within that 6.5 feet. But if I'm up on a snowbank or something that's way too steep for me to get to, or for me to approach, or for me to safely get to, then I would need to take relief from that obstacle. All right, now for OB. Now every course is gonna essentially have OB. For our purpose today, I'm gonna say, let's consider the grass up on this section of this island to be OB. Now, the everyday disc golfer usually is able to take a meter of relief from OB, which is essentially, you're gonna see them doing this, and then place their lie. Now, unless otherwise stated by the TD, the tournament director, the basis for taking relief from OB for an adapted athlete is 3 meters. So that's basically a little over 9.5 feet, which would essentially be the length of this parking space, if not a little bit less. You get 9.5, almost 10 feet of relief from OB, which you can play from. You'd have to then adjust your lie as every other golfer would, and then play from behind your lie. Now, keep in mind that the average disc golfer gets relief in 2 different scenarios. They get relief from out of bounds if their disc is within a meter of that out of bounds, right? So even if they're not OB, they can still take relief a meter directly perpendicular from the OB line and then play from that area. Now, if you're an adapted disc golfer and you didn't go OB, but you are within that 3 meters, you get OB 3 meters out. So basically where this glitch is, instead of just the 1 meter where my trace would be. If you do go out of bounds, the adapted disc golfer gets a omnidirectional meter. They can take that meter in any direction, and the adapted rules allow you to take that 3 meters omnidirectional. So you could choose which direction it goes. You take your lie from if you go OB, but if you don't, it has to be perpendicular from that OB line. Now, the last adapted rule has to do with completing a hole, and this is at discretion of the TD. Now, at the discretion of the TD, around the pin, they can place a 1 meter circle or hoop that a person who's using Appendix F can use to complete the hole. So if they have a disc that lands entirely within that circle, they have completed the hole, only if the TD has allowed for this specific rule set. If part of the disc is not within that circle or hoop, the hole is not yet completed. The entirety of the disc has to be within that hoop if this rule is implemented. Now, the last part of this appendix is just concerning illegal devices. When it comes to somebody using adapted rules or Appendix F, their chair or mobility device is no longer considered an illegal device. And at the notification and discretion of the TD, someone who is visually impaired is allowed to use devices such as beepers or bright flashing lights to attach to pins so that they may use that assisted device as well. Now, after talking with a couple of the guys over at the PDGA, and I'm telling you, these guys are amazing. They responded like ASAP and answered my questions, gave me links. They were really incredible. These rules have yet to be implemented or used in a sanctioned event. So I have a personal goal to try to make that happen. And there is plans to use these rules at a specific event coming up later this summer for veterans. Super tight. All right, now that you know the rules, I hope to see a lot more people out there getting the chance to enjoy the sport that I love as well. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to comment. Feel free to email me. Feel free to hit me up. I'm currently trying to work with UDisc and PDGA to increase the accessibility of our sport. Hope to see y'all out there. I'm kind of a smasher. I think a glitch would be like the best adapted disc golf disc.
Hot beef.